the final episode of 2024 Council Live series. Thank you for joining us today for this important panel discussion titled The CDA as a Means to a BA. I'm honored to be moderating this conversation that brings together two esteemed professional colleagues of mine in the field, Dr. Robert Lee from National University and Dr. Deborah Bergeron from the National Head Start Association. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to introduce yourselves and tell the world the wonderful things that you've been up to. Who wants to go first?
Okay, I'll jump in.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thanks, Dr. Moore. It is so great to be here. I am currently working at the National Head Start Association as the Deputy Director of Community Engagement Innovation, where I predominantly lead the professional development efforts that NHSA is making to meet the needs of the field, but do a lot of other creative things in partnerships and trying to ensure that they're getting the support they need to do great work in the classroom.
Thanks, Debbie. Dr. Lee?
Thank you, Dr. Moore, for inviting me to this conversation. It's great to be here. My name is Robert Lee, and I currently serve as the Dean of the Sanford College of Education and the Regional Vice President for the Greater Los Angeles area at National University. I've been working in education now for over 30 years, and my research and my service has really been focused on contextually situated teacher preparation, building grow your own style teacher preparation and recruitment programs, first in Illinois, then in Missouri, and now with over 30 districts across California where we prepare paraprofessionals to become teachers. As one of the largest colleges of education in the country that credentials more teachers than any other institution in California, we're also developing teacher residencies and apprenticeships with school districts and alongside community-based organizations, and really investing in community schools and figuring out ways that we could work to promote innovative and transformative solutions that provide the right types of wraparound support services that meet, the complex needs of children, families, and communities, which is why I'm so excited to be here today to talk about our work alongside National Head Start Association and our CDA to our Bachelor of Arts in Early Childhood Education pathway.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Thank you, Dr. B. Listen, Dr. B, we've got to pull up. I'm loving this background that Dr. Lee is showcasing today. So I don't know what we're going to do, Debbie, but we're slackers in that department. As many of you know, the Child Development Associate Credential serves as a foundational stepping stone into the early childhood field. It equips aspiring educators with essential skills and knowledge, laying the groundwork for future educational pursuits and professional development. My long-held belief is that the CDA should not only be recognized as a valuable credential, but also be integrated into degree programs across the nation. Embedding the CDA into higher ed curricula would provide a seamless pathway for students, enabling them to build on their CDA experiences as they pursue their bachelor's degree. This integration would not only elevate the standard of early childhood education, but also enhance the professionalism in our workforce. And I'm delighted to talk about this wonderful pathway that you all have created. So let's get started. I think I'll start my conversation with Dr. Lee. And I want you to, you've told us a little bit about it, but I want you to tell us why National University decided to integrate the CDA into its bachelor's degree program. What inspired you? What inspired the decision? And how did you accomplish this amazing pathway?
So when National Head Start, actually, Dr. Bergeron came to us with this challenge, right, of how do we grow the number of Head Start teachers in our nation's early childhood education centers, really to help with the shortages that we were seeing across the country, shortages that were, of course, exacerbated by the pandemic. We knew that this was a challenge that we wanted to help address. We know how important it is for children to have access to well-prepared teachers. And in early childhood education, teachers play a pivotal role in fostering not only cognitive and social emotional learning development, which can help address achievement gaps later on, but also in helping to set that strong foundation for lifelong learning. So, over our 53-year history at National University, we have historically supported military, non-traditional, first generation adult students. So in many ways, this opportunity not only fit well with our workforce development pathway, but it also aligned to National University's core values. Hearkening back to our history of always figuring out ways to meet adult students where they are, and then wrapping around the right types of support to help them reach their educational goals. In terms of our approach, our Sanford College of Education faculty members, so a shout out to Dr. Susan Gilbert and Jessica Alvarado and Nilsa Thorsos, worked with Dr. Bergeron team over at NHSA to, dive deeply into the CDA curriculum, crosswalking the CDA's learning outcomes to the course learning outcomes that were embedded within our courses, as well as in our overall early childhood education program. I think the other approach was to better understand the barriers. So, for this, we didn't just think outside of the box. We often say we kick the box to the curb as we really try to reimagine what this new degree pathway could look like that would be accessible for students. When we look at the data and the research that's out there, of course, we all know about the data and the research out of the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center. They say that 40 million Americans have some college, a lot of debt, and no credential. So we wanted to address that aspect as well, designing something for adult learners who may need to stop out for a variety of non-academic related needs, right? So family emergencies, or maybe it's a military deployment, or any of life's challenges. And in those types of instances, they would still be able to have something, right? And in our case, a transcribed certificate to show for their work. The other thing that we learned, and Dr. Bergeron was really helping us think through how we stacked our courses and how we were going to be offering them, was the general education courses like college algebra or calculus, or maybe it's a hard science like chemistry, or even that oftentimes it's just the first 2 years of just stacking all the general education courses together without an early childhood education content or context. That can also be a stumbling block for students because of kind of like this mismatched relevance to what students who have the CDA are going to be experiencing on a day-to-day basis in their early learning center. So for that, we partnered with our School of Arts, Letters, and Sciences faculty here at National University, and shout out to Dr. Julie Wilhelm, really to help select and braid together the right types of general education courses that not only complement the early learning context, but also would pair together with the early childhood education courses within the major.
Thank you, Dr. Lee, for that overview. Dr. Bergeron, I'm well acquainted with your national profile in our field, and as a national advocate of early childhood education, how does this integration of the CDA into higher education align with the broader efforts to improve early childhood education in the United States?
I love this question, Dr. Moore, because part of what I was looking to do when I started down this path, and it's probably worth mentioning, I think I met with 5 universities before I luckily connected to Dr. Lee at National, because it was a perfect match of I had ideas that were non-traditional, and they were willing to look at things in less traditional ways and come up with solutions. So that was really important. When I embarked on this, the real North Star was about shifting the way we look at our early education professionals and really giving them a sense of professionalism and a future in the work that they've chosen to do. That this isn't just a temporary job while I figure out what else I'm going to do, or that somehow early childhood is just this floor of a career. It is a big opportunity, and we need to have people see that from the front gate, not just after they get into the field. I think a lot of times about my own experience in the K-12 world, which is what I did before I came to Head Start. And you can walk in as a new teacher and look at the road to superintendency. I mean, you can look at a chart and it'll show you how to become a superintendent as a 22-year-old. We don't do that in early childhood. And we need to start showing people who come in, this is your first step into something much bigger and grander. It can be as big as you want it to be. And I think that connecting the CDA to the bachelor's degree, and nothing against our community colleges, they're beautiful and wonderful, but not just to an associate's, but showing people that they can get to a bachelor's degree with this credential was important to me. I think it creates a future for folks to see, even if they're 18 or 19 years old and just looking for purpose, or even 16 years old and looking for purpose in a high school, as we're working on a program together just for high school students. And so I think what it has the opportunity to do is not just to give a great opportunity to people to go into early childhood and have this connection to a higher education opportunity. That's great. But the bigger thing is to shift the way we look at our early childhood professionals, treat them, and how they see themselves. And if we can change that sort of culture, then we've opened up a whole new opportunity for the field. And I think that is where we would see, maybe we would get back to the time where when you were applying for a job, you weren't sure you were going to get it because there were a lot of other people applying. Right now, the field is so sparse. That isn't the case. And I think I would love to get back to a place where people, that was their goal and they were dreaming of that first job in early childhood and they saw this career in front of them. And I think a program like this really paints that picture. And I'm hoping that it inspires other universities to start thinking differently about programming. Doesn't have to look like it did 50 years ago. We can change the way we do this and still produce really high quality folks.
I think you're absolutely right, Dr. Bergeron. And I was thinking about my own career, started in 1991, and how the CDA for me was this onboarding experience. I really ran, after that with a lot of passion for, what it means, both the art and science of teaching. That passion was lit for me as part of my CDA program. And I think students, once that fire is lit, they need a place to burn that energy. And what better place than a program like National University, where they get the credit and acknowledgement of the work that they've done in the CDA. And can you talk about that, Dr. Lee? I think one of the unique features of your program is the credit that CDA earners will have when they start with your program. Can you talk about that particular journey for folks who are looking to improve and expand their knowledge in early childhood education?
Sure, absolutely, Dr. Moore. Our pathway at National University has 5 standalone certificates, each building off of or stacking on top of each other. Each of these 5 certificates consists of 8 courses, courses that, again, have been carefully selected and curated and sequenced, intentionally to braid together the right types of experiences that build off of the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are required to successfully engage and work in an early learning center. But as you noted, we really wanted to recognize the CDA as this foundational credential for early childhood educators, and we wanted to build off of it and provide that prior learning credit. So in that crosswalk that I mentioned earlier, we were able to map the CDA and its learning outcomes to the first 3 courses in our first certificate, giving college equivalent credit to the CDA. So a student who comes to us with a CDA in hand can come to National and automatically receive equivalent credit for the growing child, the course on child, family, school, and community, as well as the course on health, nutrition, and safety. This also means that with the CDA, that first certificate that was 8 courses is only now 5 courses to complete. I think another advantage at National University is that we also offer our programming in 4-week course segments. So an interested student can start when they're ready, right? Versus a traditional way where you're starting only at the beginning of a semester, say in January or in August. And because our courses are online and 4 weeks long, you can focus on one course at a time, diving deeply into that curriculum with a faculty member and other students. And if a student wanted to take a class every month without breaks, and you have that CDA, you can actually finish your entire Bachelor of Arts in Early Childhood Education journey in 37 months, which is just over 3 years. I think, the other exciting thing, and we really wanted to hone in on again, those barriers that can prevent students from completing is the element of the financing, right? And so as part of our Head Start promise, anyone that's interested in this program who is working in a Head Start or early Head Start affiliate space, they're eligible for our pricing of $880 per course. That is without the 3 course credit in that first certificate, that's just over $7,000 a certificate, which is important because if you're Pell eligible, the degree can be completely free because Pell covers up to 7,000, I think it's 7,300 or $7,400 right now per year.
Wow, that's really exciting. Thank you for sharing that. Perhaps the most important part of our discussion today will be how can students, make this fit within, their life. And part of it is financing their education, which is really critically important. Dr. Bergeron, I wanted to know your thoughts about how this CDA to BA pathway sort of addresses some of the systemic barriers we know that early childhood educators face and have faced for some time, whether we're talking about the dramatic turnover rate that exists in our field or the barriers around compensation and recognition, and even professional development. What do you think this type of initiative might do to either mitigate some of those barriers or help us think more deeply about them?
Yeah, I think that a lot of what Dr. Lee just talked about kind of touches on some of this. So I think that there are a number of levels to this. First of all, the fact that this is spearheaded by the National Head Start Association and worked through Head Start classrooms is key. As you know, there's a great map with all the little dots on it of all the Head Start classrooms, and you really cannot land in a community and not have a Head Start program. So anybody watching this, there's a Head Start program near you that can help to sponsor this process. And so that helps right there with an entree into the system. If somebody is interested, but feels like they're fighting against too many barriers, almost all of those things they're thinking about can be overcome if they connect with a Head Start center. And I think that's key. I think that in terms of cost, you've heard about that piece. I mean, this really can't get much better for somebody who is feeling like there's no way I could ever afford to go to college. And of course, the upside of being connected with Head Start is as long as you meet the bare bones requirements of working in the program to get started, you could get paid. You could be a paid employee, get your CDA, which often Head Start will pay for, transfer into the national program. If you're Pell eligible, you're paying nothing. And a lot of Head Start programs are so supportive of higher education and further professional development that they will carve this into your workday. There are lots of Head Start programs who set aside time for folks to do the work that their online coursework. So you can get a lot of support from the program. And then you're getting your practical experience in the classroom, which always feels really good. I think the system that National has created is so relevant. Every course is relevant to the work you're doing. So it never really feels like you're just in school, which I think is really inspiring for people who might see themselves as a non-academic. I didn't like school when I was in high school. I don't want to go back. I promise you this will feel different. It'll feel so practical that it won't even feel much like you're just back in school. And the bite-sized courses allows you to kind of like eat the elephant one bite at a time, so it doesn't feel like such a big undertaking. And before you know it, the wheels are turning, and that bachelor's degree is closer than you can imagine. The other thing that we've done here at NHSA that I think really attacks those barriers, Dr. Moore, is using a cohort model. We've thought about what are those groups of people who need to work together. Sometimes it's program based. So we'll have programs who will bring groups of people together because they're big enough to have to put a group of their own staff in the program as a cohort. But beyond that, we've got a cohort of Arabic speaking CDA folks. So they're working in a community that is predominantly Arabic speaking. They have children in the program who speak Arabic, and the people learning to be early childhood teachers, that's their predominant language. So we have a coach that works with them on the CDA content through the program, which is a much easier way to enter into academia in the United States if this is not where you grew up. We have a CDA that's completely in Spanish. We know that a lot of our communities are Spanish speaking, and so it opens that door more easily to folks who might have a language barrier up front. Let's get that one out of the way and get working on the content. The other thing we've done is look for unique populations that we think could be really promising for building the workforce. And the one that you know about well is the high school program that we're working on, Pathway to Purpose, where we're actually going into, we have a funder, which is wonderful. And we go into high schools and school systems and say, hey, we'll give you all of this for free. The council has graciously put books into that program. And those high school kids can start their CDA process, finish by graduation if they want to, if they're motivated enough to get it done, and step right into National University and enter a bachelor's degree program. And if they're working in a Head Start program, they can have a job while they do that. A lot of these kids need to be working while they're in college. And so it doesn't shut college out of the way because I have to work. The university experience is more palpable because it is bite-sized. So it doesn't feel like it all dumps on you at once. And so I think some of those systemic barriers that get in the way of higher ed. And I think particularly for those millions of people Dr. Lee was talking about that are walking around with 25 credits in their backpack, but nothing to show for it. That's usually what happens. They have to go back to work and they just can't juggle it all. And this just really takes into consideration every single one of those barriers and just finds a solution for it so that there really is, if you want this, it's here for you. Like you can do this. And there are people to support you along the way.
That's what I really love about this program, and I'm happy to highlight it today because there's so many things embedded within this program that eliminates so many of the barriers that people face, not only trying to finance their education, but looking for the right fit, which often gets to that persistence question that you were mentioning. I'll persist in a program that really fits, and these bite-sized pieces, the way that it's uniquely framed for the work experience connection, I think is really important. Dr. Lee, for other folks in the higher ed community that are looking to follow National University's lead, what steps or considerations are important for them to think about as they approach this idea of integrating the CDA into their curricula?
Absolutely. Dr. Moore, I often say that it's just as important to help set the table as it is to have a seat at the table, right? Meaning, build what it is that you want to build and invite the right people. We often joked when we were dreaming of the possibilities that we didn't want to set up any guardrails in the beginning. We just wanted to dream big and dream of all the possibilities that exist out there. And what were those barriers that students face that prevents them from obtaining their educational goals? And let's help address those on the front end versus being reactive to them as they sort of emerge, right? We wanted to focus on just being inclusive. So, for example, even beyond that course learning outcome crosswalk that I mentioned earlier, and of course, working with our registrar's office to ensure like the course equivalency for the prior learning credits and how that would be honored. Um, we also know that, obtaining the clinical hours that are required in a bachelor's in early childhood education class can often be a challenge for the working adult learner, right? How do you take that time off from work in order to go and get clinical experiences? So knowing that many of our folks who are credentialed with a CDA would be already working in an early learning center like Early Head Start or in Head Start, and similar to the apprenticeship models that we're building, we wanted that work that a CDA credentialed teacher is already doing in their workplace to count towards the clinical hours that are required in our early childhood education classes, right? So in this way, students are really able to start to think about and really reflect deeply on how do I infuse what I'm learning in my classes directly into my day-to-day experiences as a classroom teacher, and then take those same classroom teaching experiences and then apply them as part of course assignments and reflections, really helping to bridge that gap between theory and practice. It's a divide that oftentimes challenges students. So we really view this as a nice win-win type situation. So I think that would be my advice, right? Consider the learning outcomes and applicability to your own programs and courses. Of course, work with your compliance team or your registrar's office for how to engage and develop prior learning credits for the CDA. And then address as many of the barriers, right? Financial, academic, career, the family and community aspect, social, emotional, which at National University, we call that our whole human education approach, meaning that we are helping students break any of the barriers that they face in achieving their educational goals. And we're really walking lockstep with them.
Dr. Bergeron, I wanted to talk a little bit about your thoughts regarding how this precedence that National University has set through this pathway, and it's primarily around collaboration uh, between and among higher ed institutions and policymakers. But I wonder, with this being our last Council Live episode and looking toward the future and our new administration coming in, what are your thoughts about how we can learn from programs like this and how policymakers, in terms of articulating the needs of the early childhood community and our field writ large, what do you think this says to them? And can you give us any wisdom from your vantage point or perspective?
I don't know about wisdom, Dr. Moore, but I can talk a little bit about where I think the general thinking needs to move. And I think what this does, what this relationship does, if you look at just the trajectory from our first conversation to now, we were able in a very short period of time move from, hey, do you think we could create a smooth pathway from the CDA to a bachelor's degree and break down all of these barriers? And you're talking about working in a higher ed system. That is not an easy thing to do. The reason it worked was because folks stayed focused on the real goal at hand. And I think sometimes in systems, whether it's policymakers or higher ed or anything in between, get caught up in um their own day-to-day kind of muck, and they can't get out of that. If we can keep our eye line on the goal, which I would think everybody would say would be to have a strong early childhood workforce to support all of these children out there, whose parents need to go to work, which I think the new administration will absolutely appreciate, then it becomes easy. Then all the other things are just, okay, well, how do we get around that? What do we need to do to handle it? And it isn't about creating a system that's easier or less rigorous. It doesn't have anything to do with that. National did nothing that made this less rigorous. A student finishing this program, and the CDA itself is very rigorous, requires a lot from a student. So there's no lack of rigor. What there is a more thoughtful approach in 2024 to how we can learn, how we can base outcomes on mastery, not on something up front, but on mastery, showing mastery, and how we can be flexible in terms of how we get to that endpoint. That flexibility piece is really important. And I really think as we, finish this conversation, I'm going to go back to talking about the Pathway to Purpose program, because I really believe if we are going to solve really our education crisis, I focus on early childhood, but it's a K-12, it's a early childhood through 12th grade issue. We have got to reawaken our school systems. This used to be where we grew our educators in high schools, and you just saw that fall to the wayside over the last couple of decades in lieu of technology. And certainly nursing is still pretty prevalent in high schools, but I'm feeling like we're starting to get their attention again. And we're starting to see, and probably based on the fact that K-12 is having trouble filling their own positions because people are not becoming teachers. I think we have to get our school systems to become our big cheerleaders around becoming an educator. And I don't think we have that as a whole. I'd love to see it. And that comes from offering programs that meet high school students where they are. This is getting out of the mindset that you need a row of 30 chairs in a classroom. That does not need to happen. And that's what we developed, very high quality asynchronous material. You get out of the mindset that the practicum has to happen in your building. There are Head Starts in every community who will welcome those teenagers, and they will get amazing experiences. And also maybe enter into the mindset that preparing young people with a CDA at the very least will create a cadre of wonderfully prepared parents, even if all of them don't go into early childhood. But by doing that, you start to create a funnel of potential. And eventually that becomes a really strong pipeline. So I'm hoping that what this does is just kind of set the stage for, hey, we can do this. And I think Dr. Lee said this, it's just a matter of higher ed institutions determining what their barriers are. And they're going to be different than nationals. They exist in a different space and they have different priorities, but everybody can put their innovation thinking cap on and come up with solutions to those things so that we can create these pathways that are more accessible for our future early childhood educators.
I love that idea, Dr. Bergeron. And what you're talking about is finding practical solutions. And, the CDA represents a workforce innovation. Head Start was expanding across the country. They needed to prepare a paraprofessional workforce, and they created the CDA. And what I love about National University's pathway is that it is a practical innovation. It solves a problem that society has around workforce for childcare. And a prepared workforce is what we need. And I love the idea of connecting it to the high school work that you're doing, because there's a natural alignment. So someone can get their CDA in high school, leave with their high school diploma, become work ready, and go right into nationals program and get their bachelor's degree. I love, love, love it. And I think we want to showcase it here at the council. And I hope that folks listening will call you guys up and learn all about how they can do it from their prospective communities as well. So any final comments before we wrap up? I'll throw it to Dr. Lee first, and then we'll give Dr. Bergeron the final word before we wrap up this episode of CounciLIVE.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moore. And, I loved how Dr. Bergeron ended that with just the powerful impact that future teachers coming out of their own communities, and what that impact can mean for children within and families within their own communities, working together and really to help intentionally build this teacher pipeline. Um, Also very excited and thankful for this conversation, Dr. Moore. So thank you for hosting it and pulling us together. With the CDA's 50th anniversary and its historical impact, of course, on children and families and communities, and really the entire early childhood education field. National University and the Sanford College of Education, we are just honored to be a part of this legacy, building off of this foundational credential for early childhood educators and helping to create an accessible workforce development pathway for people who want to get into early childhood education. We also know that the CDA has helped to professionalize the standards required to work with young children, in their most critical development years. And I just wanted to, thank the council for their work, for their engagement and partnership in helping to build that next generation of early child educators. For those of you who are listening, if you're interested in learning more, please visit us at nu.edu. If you go to the search button and just plug in Head Start Pathway, you'll be directed immediately, and we hope to see you in one of our classrooms soon. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'll close, Dr. Moore, with a story. I got in last night, about 10 o'clock from Connecticut, where I was invited to Norwich Free Academy. It's a school in Norwich, Connecticut that signed up 10 of their high school students for Pathway to Purpose. And what they did is they gave them the content. They're getting ready now. They finished all their content work. They're getting ready to go into the classroom. And so they did this little celebration to sort of wish them well as they step into their practicum work. And when they invited me, I said I would definitely come to that, and then proceeded to invite state level early childhood folks and the Head Start Collab director, and they moved the venue, and we ended up with about 60 people at this thing that was supposed to be a very small, like donuts and coffee. But I did that because I think this is a beautiful example of how we move the needle. That's 10 kiddos in Norwich, Connecticut, who are going to be in classrooms this semester, having an impact on those kids and framing their own futures. When I talked to them yesterday, I said to those students that they aren't just taking a class, they aren't just getting a credential. They're going to go in and work with real little human beings who will love that they are in those classrooms, and they will have the opportunity to impact the future in this class that they're taking in their high school. And afterward, the director, as she closed up, said she hadn't even really thought of it that way herself. She's a CTE director. She's excited that she has these kids doing this, but it dawned on her what power now is in that school to be able to impact their community. And I would love to see this kind of relationship. And I was able to tell all those kids, Dr. Lee, that they can go right into their bachelor's degree after they graduate, which was very exciting. Can we have that kind of influence? Because if every high school in the country signs up 10 kids, we're solving the problem. Like, that is a problem solver. So, and we can do that. We've got the ability to support them. And having been a high school principal, you put a high school kiddo in an early childhood classroom, and they're like rock stars, and they have so much fun. Everybody wins. And I think we can build a really strong future with something that streamlines kids right into that bachelor's degree and onto a professional trajectory. So very excited about it. And just want to also recognize that the council has been so supportive of all of this work that National Head Start Association has done. And I am eternally grateful to you for that, because it's really allowed us to lift this up and to do so with very high quality and in a very expedient way. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you all for your insightful contributions to today's panel discussion. I could talk to you all day long because you're doing such exciting work that I think will move the needle in so many ways for the early childhood community. We've explored the pivotal role of the CDA as a stepping stone into our field, but we've also explored the dynamic pathway that National University has created. And we thank the National Head Start Association for being an innovator and leader in this space. Dr. B, you'd be grateful to know that I talked to Yasmina this morning about some work that we are doing around a couple of other ideas that were shepherded by the National Head Start Association. So we are just thankful for your leadership and look forward to the future. The dialogue that we've said here today, I'm talking to my audience now, thank you for joining us, reinforces the idea that we have to prioritize the CDA as a nationwide industry recognized credential for the field, but also highlight pace setters like National University who not only recognize the CDA, but embedded it within their program as a pathway and offering it as a free option for folks across the nation. So let us leave here today inspired to advocate for more programs like this and to integrate the CDA in the higher ed communities across the nation. Thank you for your participation today, and I look forward to our 2025 CounciLIVE series, and I hope Dr. Lee and Dr. B will come back to talk about all the impact that they're making across the nation in what will be a wonderful year for us. As Dr. Lee said, we're recognizing 50 years of the CDA as a nationwide innovation for the early childhood workforce. That's just exciting. So I hope that all of you will be prepared to celebrate that milestone, that significant milestone next year. And also, I know, Dr. B, that Head Start is celebrating a significant milestone. I think it's 60 years for Head Start next year. So a lot of celebrations going on, and we hope that all of you will be part of it. Thank you for joining us today. Have a wonderful holiday season. Bye now.